Welcome to the Kill Count, where we tally up the victims in all our favorite horror movies. I'm James A. Janice, and today we're looking at the 2010 remake of A Nightmare on Elm Street, produced by Michael Bay's company, Platinum Dunes. This movie came out just a year after the same company's reboot of Friday the 13th, but compared to that film, this rehashing is a much more straightforward remake of the original. Only this time, the crimes that led to the vigilante immolation are much more explicitly sexual. This remake doesn't play coy. Human Freddy Krueger sexually abused those kids. Freddy's always been a bad guy, but this definitely adds a darker shade of ick to the character, played by Jackie Earle Haley in this version, and whose appearance has been changed to more closely resemble an actual real-life burn victim. This Freddy still cracks the occasional joke, but he's a lot darker and meaner about it, since the whole goal of the filmmakers here was to create a scarier version of the original by Wes Craven, who, by the way, they never consulted while making this, which he didn't exactly appreciate. Did they successfully reimagine Freddy Krueger for a new generation of horror fans? Let's find out and get to the kills. The movie begins at the Springwood Diner, where this dude Dean wanders into the back of house to find a flagrant disregard for worker safety and food sanitation. Before he can go file an OSHA report, a guy with a familiar razor glove shows up and attacks him, slashing his hand, which causes him to wake up in the diner to his friend and waitress, Nancy Holbrook. But she didn't give him any of their shitty diner ketchup. That's blood in his hand from the cut he got in his dream. In walks Chris, played by Katie Cassidy, because she loves to be in subpar horror remakes. And when she sits down with Dean, it really pisses off her ex Jesse, who's chilling nearby in the diner with some bros. He storms out all pissy, leaving his buddy Quentin behind to chat it up with Nancy. I know a bunch of you are fans of Kyle Gallner, who plays Quentin, so there, I said his name. I don't know what you want. Dean whines about having bad dreams to Chris, who gets bored with this conversation and goes to call her agent about getting cast in a different horror remake. While she's gone, Dean falls asleep, allowing Evil Dream Man to show up with a real weird visual effect that I hate a bunch.
You're not real! I am now.
The next part is awesome though. Chris comes back to find Dean holding a knife to his own throat and then apparently dragging it across his own neck. Not just a simple slit, but deeply tearing into that neck meat. Holy shit, this is a real cool opening kill that I wish the rest of the movie had measured up to. At Dean's funeral, Chris nods off, because I guess he's as boring in death as he was in life, and she briefly has a dream about a little girl with a slashed up chest that ends with her ankle getting grabbed by a zombie. She wakes up from her disrespectful nap and finds a picture on display of Dean as a little boy playing with that same little girl, who apparently is her. She tells Jesse, that doesn't make sense, because she didn't meet Dean until high school. She also tells him about how Dean was screaming, "You're not real," before he died, but Jesse just blames his behavior on pills, even after Nancy comes out of nowhere to tell Chris she believes her that something weird is going on. That night at the, wait, is that the new Elm Street house? You're not even gonna introduce it with a cool head-on shot or anything? You're just gonna use a stock-looking establishing shot? Alright, listen, I know I used to be a non-believer, but that house is the most resilient fan-favorite character of the entire goddamn Elm Street saga, and you give us this? This is sacrilege. Sacrilege! In her bed, Nancy is listening to some music when she falls asleep, so we can get a CG version of that famous effect shot from the original. Now, contrary to what a lot of you think, I don't just hate all CGI indiscriminately, but can any of you look at this and honestly say it looks better or cooler than the practical effect done in the original, when VFX artist Jim Doyle pressed his face through a sheet of spandex stretched across a hole in the wall? No, you can't. Chris goes looking for old pictures of herself from when she was a kid, but a lot of them appear to be missing, and her mom is weirdly deflective about it. So that night, she goes into her attic and finds a box of her stuff from childhood that includes the slashed up blouse she saw in her dream. A jump scare knocks her down, and Dream Dude asks if she remembers him, but then she wakes up screaming in bed. I don't know, man, looks like she doesn't remember you. Should have tried to stand out a little more, maybe get like a hat or something, maybe a loud sweater. Good thing he'll have another chance to remind her who he is when she falls asleep in class the next day and her peers turn to ash around her. That sharp hand Joe guy is at the blackboard, and he tells Chris that she looks just as beautiful as ever. When he goes to give her a little hair trim with his finger blade, she wakes up screaming in class, and sure enough, she's got a good luck lock laying in her school book. Chris goes to her home on Elm Street, where her mom takes off for an impromptu business trip to London. But Chris doesn't have to spend the night alone. Jesse is outside her window, concerned about her weirdness as of late, and when she tells him about her unwanted dream guest, he catches on quick.
He's burned, and he's always trying to attack me with these knives
on his fingers.
She asks if he'll stay up with her, but y'all know asking that in a nightmare movie is the equivalent to taking a couple of extra strength Ambien, so we cut to them cuddled up together asleep. Chris wakes up and goes out back to emulate that amazing sequence from the first one, and for anyone annoyed at how much I'm bringing up the original, yeah man, that's what you invoke when you remake a classic like this. I'll spare you all the shot of the dead dog she finds back there, but not the Freddy joke that follows.
I was just patting him.
Like I said, he still cracks some jokes, but he's way less silly about it than the Freddy of all those Dream Whatever sequels. When Chris runs inside, she ends up in a preschool, where young her leads her past some girls practicing for the school talent show. She sees Freddy, too, counting down to play hide and go seek, but right when he's going to come, whether she's ready or not, she wakes up safely in bed. Or maybe not all that safely.
Found you.
You know the words to this song, folks. Chris is lifted out of bed and flies through the air like she's fighting in an early 2000s kung fu movie, as Jessie watches her in disbelief. She eventually rises up above the bed and gets her chest slashed open into 4 gashes by an unseen force. I guess this redo of the kill that started it all is fine. I'm just not really sure what the point of it is. Jessie runs out through the front door, which triggers the home security system. Oh, so Chris fancy, huh? He somehow materializes in Nancy's room without a noise and begs her to listen to him about what happened, but she's too busy singing her favorite song to pay him any mind.
1, 2, Freddy's coming for you.
Freddy.
Yes, Freddy, good. I can quit calling him Scary Murder Dream Man or whatever the fuck, now that the movie has established his name. I didn't want to spoil it for all the people who had no idea. Jessie tells her not to fall asleep, because if she dies in her dream, she'll die for real. Then he leaves her house to go test his communication skills with a whole bunch of cops. Looks like they could use a little work there, bud.
I didn't do anything! Stop! Shut up!
I love that little shut up.
Shut up!
Nancy calls up Quentin and asks to meet up with him to talk, so he does some research on everyone's favorite search engine,
Gigablast.
the only engine that requires you to both hit enter and click blast off to get your search results against that famous Robin Egg blue background. He falls asleep at his computer, and I do like the way the setting becomes a dreamscape, from the vibrating bookshelves to the endless aisles that seemingly replicate and distort with the wide-angle lens they're using. Heads up for a jump scare though, because this is how his dream ends. He wakes up with Nancy there, and she drops the F-bomb on him.
Freddy?
In jail, Jesse's pulled out of his cell because his bail's been posted, but it turns out this is just a nightmare, and now he's in a boiler room along with a bunch of kid versions of the characters in this movie. Freddy shows up to provide a spark of life to the sequence, and after Jesse runs into the bodies of Chris and Dean, we get a variation on the "This is God" line.
Oh, God. No, just me.
Freddy toys with Jesse for a minute before he seemingly disappears from the place, but then he returns and kills him with a finger knife fist through the back. Damn, that was sudden and clean. We see the results in real life too, when Jesse falls over dead in his jail cell, his fellow prisoner looking on. In a good moment of dark humor, the other guy starts screaming about how he didn't do it. Good luck with that trial, dude. While doing their sleep stuff research, Nancy gets real tired, so Quentin offers her Zonarol, an amphetamine he takes for ADD. So, you know what? I guess this movie really did update the franchise for the modern era. Mission accomplished. Jesse learned some stuff about micronaps, little waking dream states that can occur after 70 hours of being awake, so sounds like we'll be seeing some of that in the future. At home, Nancy asks her mom, played by Connie Britton, if she ever hung out with all those other kids when she was little, or if she ever knew a guy named Freddy.
I don't think so.
Yeah, something about that face makes me not believe her. But here, let's do another scene from the original. That'll be fun stuff. Nancy gets in her bathtub for a little sudsy nap, and wouldn't you know it, her bathtub seems to have an infestation of finger knives, a noted invasive species in the Elm Street ecosystem. The scene stops short of a full-on imitation, because Nancy doesn't get pulled underwater. Instead, she wanders into her bedroom full of snow, and it becomes the exterior of a place called Badham Preschool. Freddy shows up and implores Nancy to remember him, because she was his number one.
You're my little Nancy.
On a face lick, Freddy, you nasty. She wakes up in her tub to a call from Quentin, who tells her that Jesse has been killed. They look up Badham, but find that it was closed years ago, then ransack her freaking house until they stumble upon a hidden folder that contains a class picture from Badham Preschool. And it looks like the gang's all here. Nancy's mom comes in, and after she and Nancy yell at each other for a mo, she sets off a flashback that starts with a cool transition into the photograph, and takes us back to a time when Fred Krueger was but a humble preschool gardener who lived in the basement of the school. Wait, what? Aren't there like zoning laws or some shit? Fred really loved the kids, and played games with them like hide and go seek and Scratchy Backy, I guess? I never really liked Scratchy Backy. I was more of a freeze tag guy. Young Nancy told her mom about a secret cave that Freddy would take them to, but in the present, when Quentin asks why they didn't go to the police, Connie Britton tells them that Fred left town before they could, but that he's gone now and it's all okay. She blames the dreams on repressed memories and says to let the whole thing go, but Nancy doesn't buy it and thinks there must be more here than meets the eye. She does some Robin Blue blast-off searches to find the other kids in the preschool picture and learns that each one of them has been killed in extenuating circumstances. But no, my kill count doesn't include deaths that took place in the past and were only learned about through the news. Oh, also, one of the guys she looks up made a vlogging website where he chronicled his nightmare experiences with Freddy. But the last video she watches ends with him smashing his face into the camera, and just like he would have had to upload that video after the fact. Quentin's at swim practice when he apparently falls asleep mid-stroke, sinking down to the bottom of the pool and resurfacing in a nasty little puddle pool outside in an industrial-looking area. This is a flashback dream thing that's gonna fill us in on Freddy's backstory more, since nobody watching this movie is familiar with it. Fred was chased into an abandoned building by the Elm Street parents, led by Quentin's dad, played by Clancy Brown, who I will always love because dude's both Kelvin Inman and Mr. Krabs. And now he's looking to light this bitch ablaze as he throws a Molotov cocktail into the building that sets it on fire and immolates Freddy Krueger. This is, of course, the fire that kills Freddy Krueger in his human form, so I'm gonna include him on the count, even though he manages to Human Torch his way out the building and run at Quentin. That's probably just an embellishment in Quentin's dream. Quentin wakes up poolside and finds Nancy to tell her all the stuff he's learned about Fred. They confront Clancy Brown about it, and he admits that they never found Fred's purported cave. So the movie takes kind of an interesting twist when Quentin proposes that maybe Freddy wasn't actually guilty of the things they said he did when they were young.
How do you know he was guilty? You killed an innocent man.
Quentin blames himself and the other kids for this apparent wrongdoing, but before they can go off on some vindicating adventure, Nancy looks down the hall to see another iconic image from the original redone because, I don't know, man. I still don't fully understand remaking a movie and reusing all its awesome shots. They were perfect already. Why shoot the same thing again? And yes, I know I'm saying that after I just reshot and re-released the Freddy vs. Jason kill count last week. The original was age restricted. Quentin blames the hallucination on microsleep, so they go to a pharmacy where he can re-up on his amphetamines. But the doctor tells him he's all out of refills and he's not about to help this tweaker out. Nancy falls into some more microsleep dreams that include Freddy tossing her out of the Jeep and her seeing the store transform into a boiler room. As Fred continues to stalk her down the aisle, she tears off part of his sweater. So after she wakes up from a real bad finger knife slash, Nancy and Quentin learn that sacred Elm Street fact: you can pull stuff out of the dream world into reality. Nancy is taken to the hospital by Quentin, who manages to snag an EpiPen from a nurse cart while no one is looking. The doctor tries to sedate Nancy, but she ain't having it. And after the Doc and Connie Britton leave the room for a quick little sidebar, they come back to find Nancy's flown the coop. She and Quentin are off to find the preschool, and during the drive they have some real bad dialogue about how unique and special they are.
I don't know if you've noticed, but I don't exactly fit in.
Oh, Rooney Mara, you're so misunderstood and young and beautiful. A pretty good jump scare of Freddy in the road makes Quentin crash his car into a ditch, so they head to the school on foot and break in with the butt of a flashlight. There's another jump scare as Quentin slips in and out of microsleep, and I actually like the microsleep addition to the movie, since that's a real thing and it makes sense that it would be another threat to these characters. Unfortunately, it's pretty much the only addition I see that's worth a damn. Behind a maintenance door and down some stairs is a bunch of evidence that this used to be Freddy's bachelor pad, like a finger knife that Quentin finds on a table and the creepy art gallery Nancy finds nearby. Behind those pictures is a little secret sliding door that leads into a small little room. Looks like they found Freddy's infamous cave. Wait, was that Dick Butt? Yo, that drawing's almost Dick Butt. Annoying trailing effects flashbacks show Nancy remembering her cave time hangouts with human Fred. Then Quentin finds a box of pictures that confirms the darkest and most disgusting part of Freddy's backstory. This is the moment that Krueger became a confirmed pedophile. I know that the molestation thing was part of Craven's original idea for the character, but it didn't become on-screen canon until just now. And it's just, I don't know, man, it's a lot to deal with. I know, Quentin. I know. Nancy decides that it's time to confront Krueger head on, so she lies down in the dirty, nasty bed down there as Quentin arms himself with a paper trimmer blade so he can sit by and watch over her while she sleeps. When Nancy finds Fred in Dreamland, she has a poor choice of words when he starts to taunt her.
What game do you want to play next?
Fuck you.
Ooh, sounds like fun.
She finds herself in her house all of a sudden with Freddy coming down the stairs, and while she's hiding in the closet like a good little final girl, we get a shot of Freddy where he almost looks like Robert Englund Freddy, right? He pops up in a jump scare and chases her upstairs where she falls into the hallway floor that has become blood. Not exactly a recycling of the toothpaste steps, but that's okay. Fred's here to recycle a joke.
How's this for a wet dream?
She falls through the ceiling of a bedroom in what I think is an homage to Glenn's death in the original, then finds herself immobilized on the bed. Freddy comes in and says that the dress she's wearing was always one of his favorites. Ah, fucking sick.
Your mouth says no, but your body says yes.
Ah, no, Freddy, goddammit, I can't watch this.
Look at me!
No, dude, you're fucking gross now. Shit, I'd rather watch Super Freddy, and Super Freddy sucks. Then it feels like the writers realized they had a couple more classic Freddy lines to jam into their script, so they do a couple in a row.
You're in my world. I'm your boyfriend now.
Before Quentin injects Nancy with the EpiPen, which wakes her up and allows her to pull Freddy into the real world. Nancy tosses Freddy off of her, and Quentin attacks him with the paper trimmer blade, but Krueger gets the best of him with his finger knives. Before he can deliver the final killing blow, though, he runs into a little problem when his hand flies off. Nancy's here to cut off hands and steal lines from Freddy vs. Jason, and she's all out of hands to cut off.
It hurts, doesn't it? That's because you're in my world now, bitch.
She swings the paper trimmer and slits Fred's throat wide open in a pretty neat looking deep gash. Huh, kind of interesting that we had a deep throat cut to start off the movie and one to end it here, I guess. On their way out the door, Nancy tosses a lantern into the mix to burn up Freddy's body and get rid of his nasty little collection of kid stuff. What's that? You want me to include Freddy on the count? Sorry, brah, no can do.
No sign of a body anywhere.
See, they didn't find a body. I'm not sure how that works out logic-wise, but here's one situation where it's not that much worse than the original, since the ending there didn't make a lot of sense either. Don't fret though, we do have one more kill to count up. When Nancy and her mom get home, Fred appears in a pretty sweet mirror shot and stabs her mom through the back of the head. Finger knives coming out through the face. It's CG, but it's still pretty freaking cool, and much less embarrassing than that blow-up doll from the end of the first one. The movie ends with Freddy pulling Nancy's mom into the mirror while she screams in terror. As you can probably tell, I didn't think very highly of this movie compared to the original, but maybe it managed to outshine its predecessor in kills. Let's find out and get to the numbers. Feels good. 5 people died in the Nightmare remake, which, yes, is one more than the original, so I guess it must be the better movie, huh? Of the victims, 3 were male and 2 were female, as even a split you could ask for with that number, and with a runtime of 95 minutes, that comes out to a kill on average every 19 minutes flat. I'll give the golden chainsaw for coolest kill to Dean. Throat slits are usually effective in making me at least a little bit squeamish, and this one is so deep and brutal that it really stuck with me, unlike everything else in this movie. Dull machete for lamest kill is, I don't know, Freddy, I guess, since he just kind of burned to death, and we've already seen this like 3 times already. And that's it. The Nightmare on Elm Street remake came out in 2010, and although it did okay at the box office, it was so roundly panned by critics and audiences alike that it remains the last time we've seen Freddy Krueger on the big screen. And please don't tell me there's a new one coming out this year, because Return to Elm Street is just a trio of fan-made trailers for a movie that doesn't exist. They look awesome, and they're great, but it's not a new Elm Street movie coming out, so I can't cover it. In fact, we're done with Freddy Krueger here on the Kill Count, but if you like crinkly skinned killers who make jokes as they murder, I got something in store for you next week when we start the Leprechaun franchise. Until then, I'm James A. Janice. This has been the Kill Count. Thanks a lot for watching today's Kill Count. I want to thank a couple of my patrons like Dylan Johnston and Shannon Bilbrey. If you want to join the Patreon family, you can click that button right over there and do so. There are different rewards for different levels of pledges, and some of them include early releases. We're done with Freddy Krueger. How do you feel? Are you happy? Are you sad? For all the awful movies in the series, I loved the time that we got to spend with Fred. See you next time. Be good people.